Today, the whole world took a deep breath or whatever, deep breath, sigh of relief, feeling much less tense than they've been feeling the last week or two with the aggression in the Middle East. And yeah, I mean, it's Trump will not get credit for it. I believe he does not want world war. He wants things to be resolved as quickly as possible. And it looks like when the media was portraying that we're looking at a huge conflict and possibly ground troops, and unfortunately, it was getting scary for almost the last week. The conversation has been, hey, we have to have a regime change. The Iraqi people are great. We need to get rid of their leadership and everything will be fine. Very similar to the war in Afghanistan. So here's kind of a breakdown from the retired four-star general here on what the 125, 130 U.S. military aircraft pulled off here the last couple of days.
Retired four-star General Jack Keane joining us now here in the studio. General, that remarkable press conference, the tactics used, the deception, and the fact that we got in flawlessly, struck our targets, as according to Secretary Haig said, it appears we hit every intended target objective, and yet got out without a single shot being fired at us.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we got a congratulations to our troops in that execution, and the complexity of that operation is obvious. And also, let's commend the President of the United States. He showed enormous strategic patience in trying to work this with the Iranians so that they would dismantle their nuclear enterprise. But at the end of the day, we had to help the Israelis dismantle it. That's the facts on the ground. I think the operation had four major characteristics of it to help it be successful. One was the operational security of the operation. And that is really tough to maintain in our open, democratic society that we have. And we know that things do have a tendency to leak out.
Everything leaks in Washington.
And then everybody, listen, for the last week or two has been focused on this operation, and yet it didn't leak.
The only leak that I'm aware of is if you follow some of the live reporting on X or YouTube, there are people that track planes that are, I don't know how they do it exactly, but planes that they see leaving Air Force bases and whatnot. And when Trump was talking about giving them the 2 weeks to negotiate, there was a massive amount of planes leaving U.S. military bases and going across the ocean to the Middle East. And I'm assuming, there was a huge amount of in-air refueling that needed to be coordinated and all that.
The deception helped considerably in that, in terms of the missile. I mean, the planes flying initially west, but the actual planes flew east to the target. I think the president contributed to the deception operation as well when he said, well, I'm going to make a decision in a couple of weeks. The truth of the matter was the decision was already made or made very close to that statement he made. And everybody was thinking there was time here. And then characteristic of military operations, when we're going after something that we have to destroy, to ensure that we use overwhelming force. And you saw that. Most everyone was saying 2 to 3 of these MOPs were going to be used, 14.
Yeah.
Multiple aircraft to deliver all of those, and then the additional missiles, and taking down 3 targets that the Israelis wanted help on, not just one. And then the thing that was emphasized is the flawless execution.
I think there's one video out there, if you guys want to look it up, showing how large these what are they, 30,000-pound bombs or whatever. They're basically so big that it's like the biggest bombs we have, without getting into tactical nuclear weapons. They're $500 million, $500 million a bomb, and I believe they dropped, what was it, 6 of them, 2 of them back to back, basically drilling down into the ground. And the funny thing is, since they have nothing to say, the media is like, oh, there's probably still, some enriched, whatever, uranium, plutonium, whatever, like, there's more enriched uranium. It's like, even if some of it survived, it is buried. It is, at a bare minimum, their program was set back probably 5, 10 years, probably way more than that. But it's it's not like we've definitely bought years and years of time here with this operation.
And I think the audience had a complexity, got a feel for the complexity of military operations. And I really applaud the chairman for providing those details. And I want to tell you, what you folks have been doing here on Fox and Friends Weekend since this got started about 3 or 4 hours ago is really outstanding. Well done.
Well, thank you, General. And having you here is so beneficial because you understand these. And I think the real question, General, is, okay, so what now are the strategic implications of this strike? We obviously didn't get much BDA, battle damage assessment, from the Pentagon briefing. It's going to take some time. We'll learn that. But just initially, what do you see as the strategic implications?
That's a great question. You know, it's pretty significant opportunity, actually. Obviously, the threat of nuclear weapons being used against Israel, the United States, as Iran has threatened, or Europe, which would clearly be in range of their ballistic missiles, that is about off the table. The second thing is, and this is serious, no nuclear arms race in the Middle East as a result of Iran acquiring a nuclear weapon, which would have happened. The Arabs are not going to say this publicly, but they are relieved about what has just happened here.
The Crown Prince, the kingdom, the Saudis, he specifically said, the second that Iran, any of their enemies in the Middle East have nukes, they want nukes. They want more. They want to be, they are at odds with them, but they are kind of obviously dancing in the middle of the whole world. So that is, it is good that we do not have some of the more powerful countries in the world who do have funds and do have connections to acquire these weapons. Um, that's all paused as well, because that is the unknown. Having a bunch of countries added to the list of nuclear footballs, and you got to worry about changes in the government and leadership and all that.
And the other thing is, we are on the cusp of actually ending Iran's malign and aggressive behavior in the region, Griff, that has existed for 45 years. And you have outlined the killing of Americans from 1983 all the way up to the 350 attacks that Iran delivered on U.S. bases in Iraq and Syria during the 4 years of the Biden administration. And not one time did they ever accept General Kurilla's recommendation to strike Iran to stop that from happening. And so the implications here are very serious in terms of the opportunities for peace and stability. Iran is isolated in a way that we've never seen in the 45 years. The proxies have not supported them at all.
In a polite way, he's saying Biden and the Biden administration did not care for the advice of their generals. I mean, when you have top generals giving you recommendations on how to keep Americans safe, you should be listening and probably agreeing the majority of the time, where I'm confident probably the opposite of that was happening.
Think of that. Iran is on its heels. Their very survival is in question as a regime and as a military organization, as the IRGC controlling the proxies and supporting the region. All of that is on the table. None of them have come into their assistance. The Hezbollah was organized principally to defend Iran against an attack from Israel. Billions of dollars spent on them, 150,000 missiles. I've talked to the Israelis and said, what is going on with Hezbollah? Why haven't they fired? Do they have any missiles? Yes. Answer, they have thousands of missiles left. Why haven't they fired? He said, sir, their will is broken.
Wow.
And they can see what is happening to Iran. Why are they going to risk all now? The Israelis will come back at them when they believe Iran is close to being finished. This is and then the isolation. Where is Russia and China, Griff?
Yeah.
This axis has been formed. Those four nations, China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. Where are they? They have provided no military assistance to Iran whatsoever. Huge opportunity here to move forward and take advantage of it in terms of peace and stability in the region.
Well, and, you mentioned Russia and China. The Wall Street Journal has an editorial early this morning.
The one thing you hardly see at all is the Israelis took out not only the Ayatollah's right-hand man, the literally, I think his title was the commander-in-chief of the military of Iran, and took out all the other top guys. The guy that replaced him got taken out 4 or 5 days later. China, China, Russia, anybody, they're going to think twice if they're like, okay, if we're going to engage. I mean, the presidents have always been, whatever, I don't know how long back, 30, 40 years ago, it's been agreed you don't take out presidents. You don't try to assassinate the leadership of countries. But military is always in the crosshairs, and um, this was a clear display of of how to project power.
Mr. Trump meets the moment, and it's really talking about American deterrence being back. And, you saw the greatest military the world's ever seen on display flawlessly in the last 24 hours. What message does that send? Is America once again a global leader in terms of deterrence?
Yeah, absolutely. When President Trump came back into office, the major geopolitical change that he was coping with, and is China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea forming an alliance together to cooperate because they saw opportunity. They believed that American leadership under the former president was weak, and they could take advantage of that weakness. It's not isolated that Putin went into Ukraine. It's not isolated that Iran operationalizes all of its proxies to once and for all go after Israel and bring that country down. And President Xi is preparing for war, and he keeps threatening war. And during those previous 4 years, the intimidation and coercion on his part in the Pacific has accelerated dramatically. This operation by itself, even though it's limited in terms of what we are doing and certainly limited in terms of what our geopolitical objectives here, we're not going to invade Iran, we're not going to occupy it, we're certainly not going to do any nation building. We just want them to stop. And I think we'll achieve that. What a message this sends to our allies and partners around the world, certainly the Arabs in the region, but also Taiwan, the Europeans, et cetera, watching this. What really are they seeing? They're seeing the President of the United States come to the assistance of a partner and ally who needs our help and who is being challenged in their very existence. And the United States has their back and has stepped up and used force. That is what is being seen. Our adversaries see, and you said it, the return of American global leadership in a way that they can no longer take advantage of like they have been doing for the past 4 years.
And maybe they'll actually try to do good things and try to make the world a better place to be partners with us instead of the constant shenanigans.
And they've been getting away with it, and we all have seen it. So this is a step in the right direction. I mean, it's not a fait accompli in that sense,
right,
but they will change their assessments as a result. I believe when President Trump got elected, they had to rethink what's going to happen here in terms of what we have on the table and what are our objectives. Now they have to make another assessment back based on the fact that President Trump has used force to eliminate a nuclear threat to Israel, to the region, to the world writ large. And they are on notice as a result of it.
On notice. General, let me ask you really now, as we wait to see if Iran will strike, will they hit one of our bases, al-Assad in Iraq? Will they go after Bahrain? What do you anticipate will be the response?
We don't know. So it's their choice to make. But I'm confident the message that has been delivered to Iran that we are conducting a limited one-off airstrike in support of Israel's operation. We are not going to war with you.
And just a quick update, if you haven't heard, there is a ceasefire that was announced, and that is going to be, it's Monday, June 23rd. If we wake up tomorrow and everything is calm, then that means a ceasefire went in place. I don't know what it is. They have like 6 hours to basically shoot some more missiles at each other, but my understanding is even the missiles that were shot there's notice given in advance because it was just like a saving face type of thing. And the point being is like, hey, Um, they did what they had to do to project power to their people, and now everyone can come back to the table and get back to negotiating.
If you retaliate against us and hurt people at our bases or our capabilities at those bases, then you're going to have to deal with massive consequences as a result of that action. I believe, based on where Iran is, and they're so much back on their heels, their military leadership has been decapitated, their civilian leadership is in hiding, buried under the ground, and the psychological and emotional impact that would have on that person in terms of what is happening to them and what they're used to having in their normal everyday life will take its toll. I think they will recognize that they cannot afford to do what people are suggesting, a massive strike on the United States, which would result in our significant, overwhelming response. And that would put their regime's survival at risk. Not in terms.
And I think the turning point in his genius, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but when this all started, the Israelis bombed the Iranian state TV live, and you could see the fear, and I think she was obviously crying as well, of the reporter as she ran for her life. And then that building burned basically to the ground for the next day or two.
In terms of us bringing down the regime, but in terms of them being so politically weakened as a result of everything they care about being destroyed, that people will look for opportunities to take that regime over.
Well, and obviously we saw Iran responded after we took out Soleimani. So we can expect maybe something will come. But, I'll tell you, General, I spent weeks, months over the last 4 years out in places like the San Diego sector. I encountered English-speaking Iranians, Syrians. My colleague Bill Malusia and I did too. I now am talking to some DHS sources, worrying about, is there a threat of a cell or someone being activated, or even a smaller, individualized, motivated person to try and strike us here at home?
Yeah. The FBI has some concerns about that, and obviously Senator Cotton, who's the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee, has mentioned that. So I'm assuming that threat is real. But I also have a lot of confidence in our counterintelligence capability. One, the fact that they're recognizing that threat does exist means that they're onto something. And the fact that they revealed it to the American people was interesting in of itself. So I have confidence in that system. And hopefully that they'll be able to prevent anything like that from happening. I think the more realistic thing that would happen is some kind of missile retaliation by the Iranians.
Yeah, and we probably can expect that. I want to bring you back to that.
So we'll leave it there, guys. But what do you think? Is this hopefully the end of us having to worry about World War III starting this year? Hopefully the rest of Trump's term, if we're lucky. It would be nice to see the violence wind back 10, 20 years. And, 10, 20 years, you can't say that because there's a constant war. But it'd be nice to see the violence wind back and see a more stable world. What do you guys think?